The town manager said, no, it's not a town road. That road, 43rd place, 25th court, all the non-lettered roads have not been dedicated to this town. So they're not town roads. The town is generating gas tax revenue off of your property without due process. And this same thing is happening on 43rd Street. Thank you.
All right,
Make a motion that we continue on the gas.
all right, we have a motion to continue collecting on the gas tax register.
Second.
Second by Ron. Further discussion?
Yes, I would say I oppose this motion. I continue to believe that it should be an opt-in versus an opt-out situation.
All right,
Hang here.
I say I personally oppose this, and it should be an opt-in, not an opt-out.
okay, but you made the motion.
I did.
Okay. So we have a motion, and we have a second. A little bit of history here. When we first began to talk about having a town, we did not know whether we would qualify for getting any gas tax money returned to our residents, honestly. Because all of the gas tax money in the county went to the county. And our roads were never on anybody's maps as far as collecting gas tax. So what we did is we decided, okay, we'll put it out there. And to try to get, there was a certain criteria, and a lot of our roads that were not district roads qualified under the county gas tax thing. So we put in for the gas tax money, and the League of Cities and the county began to pay us the gas tax money for our lane miles. The first intent was we listed the roads. If somebody wanted their road taken off of it, we took it off. If nobody said anything, the town collected the gas tax money. It benefited everybody in Loxahatchee Groves, and we would continue to do so because it met the criteria. You know, it doesn't matter to me if we take the road off. It's a little less money for the road maintenance and stuff for the town. But, you know, if somebody doesn't want it, but I think if the majority of the people want it, I think we should keep it. So we are going to get an issue piece right as to what we do with the culverts. If it's going to be a town road, you know, then we're going to have some things to work through. But anyway, all right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of keeping it on the gas tax roll, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, so it passes 3-1. Okay, and Ron can't vote, or Jim can't vote. All right, moving to C. Phyllis?
This is my first PowerPoint presentation, so sorry about that. Okay, good evening, Mr. Mayor, Town Council, and especially the residents and concerned friends of Loxahatchee Groves. My name is Phyllis Manilia, resident since 1989. My presentation tonight is lobby the Town Council before us not to renew the contract of Frank Shiola, town vendor, and Two & Taylor's code enforcement ending September 2014. I respectfully request Town Council to investigate the relationship of Mark Cutney, town manager, concerning these two contractors and his approved.
Do me a favor.
I'm sorry.
This isn't to bring, you know, I mean, we're not
Oh.
going after the guy. I thought you were giving us a
This
presentation.
is my first, this is about code enforcement. Okay. All right, I'm just trying to explain.
I thought you were coming to us with some ideas.
No, I have been here for almost a year trying to get rid of my unsafe house. I have discovered, sir, that my unsafe house was a scam. Okay, I have discovered certain code violations that the address does not exist. And I have tried to condense
But all
this.
those have gone away, right?
No, sir, no, sir. No, they got, and these entities got paid for this. So I'm gonna try to make it brief, okay, as brief as possible, but I went through a lot of trouble and expense to do this, and I would like to be
All
heard.
right, so please speak to the issues, not the personal.
Yes, sir. Okay, so first, what brought this about, I believe, is this is my letter to the editor in the Town Crier, 9/20/2013, and you could read tired of business as usual. The next is code enforcement log, which, as you notice, the pink lines, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, are all done by Frank Shiola. On September 27th, 7 days after I wrote that article, a code enforcement complaint was made against my property. Unsafe house is what it said. That is my driveway from the road. You cannot see any of my buildings. The next picture. That is my older home on the property, which is maintained quite well. I've had 2 councilmen in there to confirm that. The next picture. May I step up to the picture so I can point out what I'm...
I can't see the picture very well.
I apologize. I'm sorry, I'm standing. This is the roof of my old home, so you cannot see my buildings. Okay. The next one. I am showing that on 9/27, Mr. Shinola was not working for the town. If he was working for his other job, I'm going to find out. Okay, and there are many questionable charges on his invoices, which I'm gonna go past that right now. Okay, let's go, we're on 9, okay, 9. I am on the bottom, 349. Says me, okay? It's case number 349, site inspected, photos and new case filed. 9/27/13. Okay, also the house behind me, which I'm now purchasing, which has been falling down. Okay, that also says case 350, site inspected and closed case. I don't know why that says that, but everything comes off your own document. Okay? By the way, you were charged 5 hours for that. As far as I know, nobody came in my gate. Nobody came in my gate on that day. And if they did, it was done illegally. Okay, skip 10. Thank you. 11, you can see, when you total those 2 amounts, Two and Taylor got $2,500 for that one. Okay, we're gonna
Mr.
skip.
Mayor, can we stipulate that Two Taylor gets paid to do their job and so does Frank?
I'm showing discrepancies in their payment. I would like to finish this, and then you can discuss it. I have all these documents, and I'll be glad to give them to you. Okay, we're gonna skip 12. Okay, 13, me. See that? Okay, it's 5 hours again. Okay, my case is included with one other case. It's the pool off Okeechobee at the Seventh Adventist Church. It says case follow-up, 5 hours. Coordination, now, I don't know who did this, and I'm assuming Russ, but case 349, now they're saying unsafe house. Coordination with property appraiser's office, case filed maintained. I called Ms. Padot, who I've been speaking with over other issues. She called Russ, who's on vacation. Okay, when he returned his call, Russ did not meet coordination with property appraiser's office. I thought they had a meeting, you would think, it's 5 hours. Did not meet, called to confirm that the information concerning my property was correct on the Pappas website. I have 6 months of Two and Taylor invoices and all these little, nowhere did he do that to any other resident in 6 months. Besides, I would like to point out the fact that Mr. Cutney on the May 20th meeting stood up, it is on tape, it is on the audio, and said, or sat down, that Mr. Shiola made dozens of complaints which were called into Russ Elgin and filled out by Russ Elgin. And I have the Loxahatchee Code towards the end of this. Okay, let's go. March 18th, I asked for help from town council. Let's go to page 16. All right, starting on the bottom, March 19th, I wrote to Russ, and it says, Mr. Cutney told me at last night's meeting, you will be contacting me regarding this complaint. Then he called me. Okay, April 6th, this is his answer. Feel free to call me. And by the way, it says on March 19th, contact me regarding this complaint and respond by email. So I have a written document. He calls me. I have no, okay? So that's April 6th. April 28th, please send, so it's regarding our phone conversation 5 minutes ago. Please send your request to gain access to my property and why in written form, along with a definition and code for unsafe house, okay? And you guys know I've been up here trying to do this. So we will skip 17 and go to 18. So April 14th, I write Mr. Cutney. Okay, please have the following information. It has come to my attention, monies are paying out to an individual concerning code enforcement. I'm just briefly
I'm
summarizing.
having a hard time following it, Phyllis, I really am.
All right, well, what I'm
I think it's fun
asking
of you.
for is documentation and help. Please have a word with your code enforcement officer. I have been explaining to the town council for some time now regarding lack of written documentation. I expect a written explanation by the end of the week, Friday, why I was violated, had a code enforcement violation by Mr. Shiola on September 13th. I would like to remind the council that this violation was written on the 27th of September 2013. I did not find out about this violation and only found out by accident in February of 2014. Okay, so on 3/19, I asked for help again, skip 20. Okay, and you could skip this, this is a repeat. Then this is April 29th. Once again, I'm asking help from Mark. He called yesterday again to gain access to my property.
Okay, just real quick, is it still an open issue?
No, it is
Or-
closed, no, there is one still issue open. You have not provided me with an amended letter on this.
Okay,
property.
but all of them have been, they're no longer going after you for anything, right?
Yes, but I need my amended letter, because it's,
Okay,
all right,
okay, I mean, I'm just trying to, I mean, I just
All
think we're going a long way around.
Okay, well, this now is a case of documentation. I want to show you that this management does not give documentation. This is public record, let's go to 24, please. This is the public record form, which I filled out properly, and notice it's stamped. By the way, all the code enforcement complaints by Mr. Shiola are not stamped with the town stamp receipt. Okay? This is a letter clearly stating the documents I request. I only got the documents concerning me. I wanted to research the other people that also got code enforced. Okay, I still have not received those documents. Here's a letter, they were unable to provide me certain documents. Okay,
Help me understand.
all right,
What, you need right now a amended letter.
well, for my house, I would like to have, the letter says, okay, let me find the letter, I'm trying to show you the money spent on a fictitious code enforcement complaint. Can we go to 29? I really wish you would let me get
I
this.
can't see it anyway, Phyllis, so, you know, you're going wherever you want to go.
Well,
I don't have anything in front of me.
Phyllis, for a second, could I summarize two things? I think two of Phyllis's issues. One, it's her position that the initial complaint against her was in retaliation for a letter in the newspaper. I got that from what she said. The other thing is she's been through a lot of bureaucracy with the code enforcement people in which she sends them emails or whatever, and rather than respond by email, they give her a call. Most of
Well,
her
really?
concerns relate to process. And also she feels that the time that's been expended on her issue was excessive, and because of that, as well as feeling that it's symptomatic of what else happens in code enforcement, that we're probably paying too much as a town for code enforcement. I glean this from having many conversations with Phyllis and her having told me how she feels about this.
Right.
Am I correct?
Partially, I would like to also show, if it's okay, right here, it says comply. This was my code enforcement issue with my neighbor, okay? They did not comply. Here's a letter from Mr. Elgin, okay, saying that the complaint, this is the Farm Act. I have no setback between my fence, my $33 a pound fence is the back of their chicken coop, okay? Because I lost that case, according to Mr. Elgin. This letter, if I may read it, it is from the town. This is to inform you that a review of your complaint against 2 boarding properties in your home has taken place. The review concludes there is compliance. And now he's saying the driveway has been cleaned up and the setback is rendered mute. I'm not gonna read it all to you, but on this day, August 23rd, where he's saying the driveway was cleaned up, it was not. I immediately called him and told him it was not cleaned up. So I'm sure he charged you for an inspection that day. I involved the OIG on that, which they said it was a town issue. Okay, so it was unsafe house on the code enforcement complaint. Well, then finally, I get the actual complaint. And what does it say? House on property being used as barn and living quarters. Okay? So, I'm gonna skip to the answer to that.
Was someone living in the barn?
No. I had, okay? No. And you saw, oh, you didn't see. Well, you know what the thing is? You didn't see where my driveway was. You cannot see my house.
I can't see the picture.
So,
No.
Mr. Shiola stood up here at one meeting after I
I just asked you a question,
Well,
Phyllis.
I'm explaining this to you, okay?
No, your no is fine.
Oh, I'm
Your
sorry.
no is fine.
All right, well, this is all part of the problem, okay? I was code enforced because, as Mr. Shiola said, I made a code enforcement complaint against my neighbor, and he made one against me. Okay, so this is also another letter to Mark. If we could skip to 36, please, thank you. Now, I asked Mark for policy on Loxahatchee Grove's code enforcement, and this is what I got. Okay, this doesn't apply, it doesn't give a time limit, it's not what I asked for. I wanted to know when someone came in to fill out a code enforcement complaint, what was the procedure? Okay, now this is Peter and Susan Robbie's code enforcement complaint by Mr. Shiola. It is not stamped and it is in the same handwriting as mine. We're gonna get to that. Okay, 9 months after the complaint was filed, I got a correspondence. 9 months. Okay, I had an unsafe house first. So they waited 9 months to send this letter on May 12th, asking me for a meeting on May 13th. Okay? But I had the option of doing it in the afternoon of May 21st. Now, how do you send a letter on the 12th and expect somebody to say okay by the 13th? This is my second request for the same documents I did not receive. The first request was May 8th, the second request was May 13th. I still have not received those documents. It's July 1st. May 20th. Okay, so I went to the meeting and again requested to be on the agenda. Now, I've listened to the May 20th tape, not the audio, the actual video. Now, if you listen to the video, in the beginning of the May 20th Loxahatchee Groves town meeting, you can hear Frank Shiola speaking because he sat right next to the video. And what he's talking about, you can hear him talking about punching someone in the head, immediately going into a sentence suggesting that I had discussed him getting paid $100 and something for code enforcement, and then later in that, and then he says he clearly made the complaints as a resident. Okay, they've all been saying he has made these complaints as a resident. Okay, if you go to 135, a minute 35 and 26 seconds, Mr. Rocket, who did come to see my house, I asked you all to please come see my house, asked Mark's questions regarding my complaint and kind of insisted, find something out. Okay, now, in that same part, immediately after, Mark speaks about his PowerPoint presentation, which still does not have time limits on when somebody gets enforcement. It doesn't say anything about that. And Mark, in that audio and video, remarks that Mr. Shiola made a dozen or so complaints, called in to Russ Elgin, code enforcement officer, who filled out the forms, and that's why I didn't even know that, but I was upset that night. This, Loxahatchee Grove's code compliance for code enforcement. And if you don't mind, I'm going to read just this little bit. To file a citizen's complaint, all complaints must be filed in person and in writing and in writing at the town office. The town office no longer accepts complaints over the phone. For your convenience, you could click and get the affidavit. Will not accept forms that are not signed in front of a town staff member. Please note that all complaints are public record, and town will not accept anonymous complaints. Okay, you know why I'm upset. All right, so now they've also charged. It says $528.14 for an hour to send me a letter. I'm trying to purchase the house behind me. And this is the letter that I'm asking for and amended. And basically because of the last part of it. I was released. I was told I had to let Russ in to get rid of this code enforcement complaint, or it was not going away. Okay, and I kept telling you guys it was fictitious and malicious, and I truly believe that. Okay, so the inspection was made May 22nd, after I had come to the May 20th meeting. Okay, and then during the course of the inspection, it was noted to the eastern part of the property did not appear to have building violations, which I don't know why you put that in, because it was more about a barn and people living in it, and was not being used for human habitation. In reviewing the encumbrance on the property, it was noted that the subject building was to be converted to a barn and not be used for human habitation. Well, that bothered me because I've lived there a long time, and I think I don't have the liens on me anymore, and I have a satisfaction of mortgage, and I would like to do as I wish within the town ordinance. So I went to HUD, and they said, it's been lifted since May of 2012. And I went directly to Mr. Cutney's office. I gave him the information and the contact number for the director of HUD. And that is why I would like that amended, where it does not include the human habitation. June 26th, this is my request to Mr. Cutney by mail, because I write everything down, okay? And I asked him to supply me with a letter, because the original letter was no longer accurate. All right, so now we're going to go to the next issue. That's me, okay? Now, I have...
All right, and that's what your agenda item is,
Well,
right?
it's code enforcement issues. This is going to be quick now. No, that was my first issue because I was unjustly code enforced and it cost the town a lot of money. And I did ask Mr. Cutney, I sent him an email and I asked Miss Tina at the office, I would like my file scanned and I'd like to know how much that cost the town. Okay, so this is the house behind me that is falling down. Here's the code enforcement complaint made out by Mr. Shiola on the same day as mine, 9/27/13. It says unsafe house. This house is falling down. Okay, Mr. Gerald has been there to cut the electric. Okay, this is falling down. The owner of this house, for 9 months, was not notified. 9 months, was not notified by this town that it had a complaint against it, that it had an issue, and the roof was falling in. Okay? This is a letter, May 6, 2014, and if you could provide documentation, please, but they can't, okay? May 6, 2014, they send him a letter, and they tell him to tear his house up, let's say, remove or rehabilitate the building on property, obtain repair or demolition permit by May 28, 14. So they gave him 22 days to get a permit, to do a demolition or whatever. But this was an unsafe house. This house should have been immediately acknowledged. It should have been immediately, he should have been sent a letter when they realized it. And it should have been fenced off, no trespassing signs, which I am in contract to buy that house. And this is what I did, if I may approach. I fenced it off the next day. I put no trespassing signs. That is the house. Look at the roof. That sat there for 9 months. That's not code enforcement when people are gonna get hurt. You got kids in the neighborhood
So
and they're
for
gonna
10 years.
end up in that house. That is a tragedy. Okay, I'm done with that one. Let's go to Tangerine. Mr. Goldstein, you're gonna love me. Okay, back in 2010.
If we're gonna go to Tangerine, let's point out that you have just told us that you fenced a property you don't own.
I had permission.
So did I.
I called the owner.
So did I.
This is a road issue. This is a road that drives through. I'm talking about a road that was
Okay,
maintained.
but I thought it was code enforcement.
This has nothing to do with it.
This is code enforcement.
Phyllis,
Okay, I'll skip this one.
Phyllis, we're rambling on here. It's
Okay, I
20
was-
minutes till 10. We got a long way to
Okay, okay, all right. This is code enforcement complaint 14363. 1250 F Road does not exist. No such address. I checked it on Pappas. I spoke to the gentleman that owned the road, that owns this home. Okay? I spoke to him back in February when I found out about my code enforcement complaint. And he said, never heard from you guys. I just called him because it has been closed. Okay, it has been closed. 7 hours, case 363, they inspected it and took photos. This gentleman was quite surprised about that, because the property control number is right, the name is right, the actual address is right, and it was closed somewhere after February, February, and actual address, he told me the address, I'm not gonna say it, but I spoke with this gentleman on 6/28/14 at 6:30 PM, and he never heard from the town. I have documentation, this is when I asked for his documentation, did not receive it. There's my stamp, so I put it in. Now, here is the 2 and Taylor charges for that. There was an original charge to open it, oh, I have both. Okay, 1 hour, 14-636, site inspected, I'm going fast, so I missed the one that was, I had the one in here that shows when they started it, because it shows case open. Okay, but this is, they closed it. They inspected it, they closed it. It doesn't exist, he never heard from them. Never let them in his property. Okay? Seventh Adventist Church, this is a pool. Same thing, 9/25/2013. Now this, I mostly have pictures. Can you go to 66, please?
Are we gonna cover every code violation?
No, we are not. I'm almost done. I'm almost done.
Because, you know, it sounds like we've got some issues that we need to
Okay,
take
sir,
care
you
of.
really need to see the
All right.
pictures, please. Okay.
Phyllis,
Sir, this is,
no, we've already, we understand, we have major problems with notification and everything else. You know, so please,
sir, this is the
just don't
public
drag us
safety.
through each one of these.
I'm not, I'm almost done.
Yes, you are.
I will,
She's done now.
may I finish this and be done?
Phyllis, you know, right, we've heard you. We understand, I understand your frustration. We have some issues to take up with our management.
Okay, sir, if we could go to 82, I just want to show Frank Shiola charged us.
Phyllis, we
for
have
stop signs.
heard what you're saying.
No, sir.
Yes,
this is
yes,
code
we,
enforcement.
trust me, we have. You're showing me stuff back there, you've only brought one picture up here where I can see it.
Well, I put it on the screen, I paid a lot of money to do this. This is the post laying on the ground. Okay, Mr. Shiola, I have the proof that he did it. I have the Bright Coast sign manufacturer. Here's another picture of the other job he did.
Phyllis, let's.
This has become a personal attack.
No, it
No,
is
it-
not.
it has.
I rode my horse.
All right.
That is how he left the sign and charged
All right.
us.
Well, for,
Do you see that?
yeah, I see it.
That's there now.
Okay.
This is not personal. This is
For
absolutely.
sure it is.
No,
Phyllis, it
yes,
is.
It is, you know why? Because I'm a taxpayer, sir.
I understand that. I understand that, and I understand your frustration, and I understand we've got some problems with code enforcement that we're gonna have to get to the bottom of,
Your Honor,
you know.
and if I may, I've been patient, I have not tried to refute anything. My concern is this, obviously, I believe our vendor needs an opportunity to be here and to also address, I mean, this is all one-sided without anybody getting a chance to tell their side of the story.
I have their documentation.
Phyllis.
So, I mean, you know, we'll be happy to investigate anything. Obviously, if we have a vendor that's doing something inappropriately, we certainly want to look at that. But, you know, again, I mean, this is all one-sided without us having any opportunity to respond or to look at the allegations and the accusations that she's charging.
I will be happy for you guys to download that presentation. It has all the documents.
One of the things, Mark, that I'm concerned about is that if we're doing complaints without notification of property owners, you know, and if we're letting that much time lapse and things like that, I've got serious concerns about that.
And that is a very global concern because we get, as we've indicated, you know, you want a part-time code enforcement. We get a lot of complaints, they sit there for a long time. If Ross is gonna contact everybody as soon as he gets the complaint, now we have an issue because he's gotta address those quickly and that's gonna balloon the costs.
Excuse me, sir. I have documentation.
Excuse me,
Phyllis,
I'm talking.
Phyllis, please. Okay, please.
So, I mean, there are issues to talk about. I mean, it depends on service level and how you want to do code enforcement. I mean, she is taking advantage of a process that's not perfect because of the way we handle it and the way we fund it.
You know, a lot of the problem with code enforcement has to do with frivolous complaints. Russ is constantly chasing neighbor wars where one person has an issue with another and files code enforcement complaints, as well as calling the animal control and all sorts of things. I've been the victim of this myself, so I'm fully aware of it. People make stuff up in this town with absolutely no facts behind it, make accusations, and then make people try to deal with it. I understand that Phyllis feels that she has been put upon. I've been put upon, and Phyllis is one of the people who's attempted to do it to me, so I don't have a lot of sympathy for someone who goes around causing code enforcement complaints on other people and then cries, oh, poor me. I've never filed a code enforcement complaint on anybody in this town. I believe in live and let live. If more people would do that, we wouldn't have the problem. Phyllis had a problem with the chicken pen. She started up with the gordons. She had a problem with the whole plastic. She started up with the plastic. She's got a problem with everything around here, the way she wants it to be. Well, I know people who live right next to her who don't like the way she's got it. I know people who don't appreciate the input from Phyllis. I know that there's plenty of vendors who probably wish she would stop harassing them. And I really think that this was an extremely disjointed presentation. And I don't know what it's supposed to say, except as Mark pointed out, that we don't get right on this code enforcement and beat people's doors down about it. But I don't think that's what people in this town want. But I think that when you do get code enforced, it ought to be checked out, because I'm still, as she probably knows, I'm still waiting on a call from Mike that Frank Spence told me he was going to give me about the gate on Tangerine that she turned me in on. Okay? I'm not waiting on the visits from the animal control, because they come quite regularly, to the point where they all know my name now. Call me up and say, what about this and what about that? because people can't leave me alone. They don't like what I say,
This isn't-
so they decide, excuse me, and you know you called me in about things that were not my problem.
I have not called you
You
about
have,
anything,
you called
only the
it,
gate.
Phyllis, you called the animal control about
I
hogs.
certainly
You
did
called them about
not.
hogs, you also had people shoot hogs, right here in this neighborhood, because you were complaining about them at your house. So don't pretend that this hasn't gone on, and it's much deeper than she wants to pretend, and it is also not a one-sided story.
All right.
May I please, sir, may I please?
I'm gonna give you 1 minute to summarize everything, because
Right
this has
here.
been all over the place. This
Okay.
has been all over the place.
I had hogs tear my yard up. Junior Gordon told me they were his hogs. So I called animal control, they couldn't do anything about them, say trap them, okay? Officer Combs
There's
can
wild hogs
attest.
in her yard, and she thinks that I
Officer
own wild hogs.
Combs
It's
can,
absurd.
Junior's kids saw them, they were spotty hogs.
Junior's never been to my house, so I don't know how he could say that those hogs are mine. Phyllis, what you're saying is senseless. Senseless.
Officer Combs can attest to the fact that I have had a problem with the issue in the plaza and I'm trying to clean up the plaza. Those are my complaints that Mr. Galtonese is talking about, okay? I rode through Tangerine all the time and one day he put a chain across it. So I thought it was an easement issue.
She
These
and
here-
10,000 other people drove through there and
Ken
threw
Baker.
trash all over the place.
No.
It was closed down because I had an easement to the land, and the current landowners want nobody going across it. They have petitioned you, and it's been taken off the gas tax.
All right.
So why she thinks she's an issue to back up and try to steal people's private property rights, when she herself said she just fenced the property she doesn't own. You know, it's one set for other people and one set for her with Phyllis, and I personally don't take a lot of what you say seriously, Phyllis. I don't believe you in many cases.
This
All
here
right.
are
Phyllis,
one
we have
code
heard you.
enforcement, other
No,
entities.
listen to me. We have heard you. We're gonna try to get you this letter that you want. From what I understand, there are no outstanding issues or complaints against your property. Am I correct?
Yes, but I'm trying to buy
Okay,
the
now-
property behind me and they're already, they made me sign a paper saying when I was gonna tear it down and I'm not even the owner.
All right. Well,
It's not gonna stop. And you need to look at the invoices for Mr. Shiola, because apparently Mr. Cutney is not, before he pays.
all right.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Phyllis.
I'd like to point out that Phyllis wants to have 2 homes on less than 2 acres of land.
It's not, I asked Braden to please check in on a caretaker's cottage, so I could have a little help on my property, and I'm entitled to that. And the county has no problem with it.
All right.
Didn't know the town was.
Moving on to, Roger Clinton and Lawrence Corey.
Todd McClendon. A couple things that I want to point out that you may went over your head. You've got 2 town vendors working together, creating code enforcement complaints, charging the town thousands of dollars, and in the end, there's no issue. I mean, that's a huge problem right there. I mean, that's milking the town for money. All right, that's 2 vendors working together. On top of that, you've got a code enforcement officer, one code enforcement officer for the town, who's put on record that he swears he's the only one that does inspections. However, on the forms at the office, there's multiple signatures on those forms that says somebody's done inspections other than Russ. I brought this to Pearl's attention. You guys need to find out officially in writing who is signing these documents as official use only, when we only have one code enforcement officer, but they're different signatures. That's a huge problem. There's a mess with code enforcement, and it really needs to be addressed big time.
Thank you, Todd. Lawrence Corey.
I redid historic buildings downtown, and we're sort of competing with the murder rate in New Orleans. And I haven't seen anything of this kind of complexity, and I think we've kind of brought this on ourselves in a way. You know, when I looked to come out here and hopefully get out of that mess, you know, the politics and that nonsense, I thought you had kind of an independent, small government-like, and live and let live, as you had said. And of course, there are requirements to be a town, but it's almost like the manure ordinance. You've gone so overboard. Someone's just drinking the coffee or something. And you know, it seemed to be a kind of a town where you could have the Clampetts, you know, before the oil and after the oil, living right next to each other and not having a problem. You know, you can sort of do your own thing and I mean, this is, boy, this is an extreme example. But there's a lot of it going on constantly undercurrent. And it just seems that more and more problems will be surfacing along these lines. And it's really because you're going overboard. You're causing yourself all kinds of money, creating all kinds of ordinances, all kinds of work, allowing all kinds of development. They sit at the table, so of course they come in and meet the requirements. I mean, you're really, it seems to me that when you went out to ask people to incorporate, and what you got at that time and what you have now, I mean, I think you really need to sit down and meditate on what you're doing. Really. And this is just one body that's floating to the surface, but it's going to get worse. I mean, it's probably is worse.
Okay.
I would like to say, I have long spoke about the need to reduce code enforcement as a major issue, and I think that one of the biggest problems is the neighbor war thing, where people get something on for a particular person and they just won't let up, you know, and I'd like Mark to actually analyze this so we can see where these come from. Is it really, I mean, she says she's number 349. And I know there's numbers after that. I mean, 400 or 500 people or problems in a town of 1,200 houses, that seems unusual. It seems like one person does it and then they get a retaliation right back on. In her particular case, she says she started with the Gordons and then now she accuses Frank of being the agent of the Gordons to get back at her. You know, this is just
No.
back into.
I didn't say they sat him.
He's making a comment.
Okay.
And, you know, I just, at the same time, I see what Mark is saying as far as we don't want to put too much immediacy on everything, but also to not know that it's going on could be a problem for people, you know? So there's a lot of issues with this. It is coming up for a new contract, and maybe what we ought to do is look at that contract in depth to see if there's, and I know when we're using contractors versus employees, we don't have quite the same level of control.
Sure.
Maybe it's not within our purview to say, Russ, you have to get with somebody within X minutes of them having called. You know, that might cost us too much. They might have to put on a new person because Russ being a fireman only works X number of days a week. So, you know, we would have to look at that and decide whether we want to pay that. I've supported having a low budget for code enforcement, and I think we should. You know, what's out of control is the special magistrate budget. When you start taking people to court on things and it goes on and gets bigger and bigger and bigger, we're spending thousands and thousands of dollars on that. What is it doing for us collectively as a group compared to what is it doing just as these little battles go on? If somebody doesn't like their neighbor's chicken house, is that really something that rises to the level of us as a town going out and spending these other folks' money to go and prosecute that issue? Or to go over and tell somebody to move a gate? Or to go tell them to do this or tell them to do that? You know, a lot of these things, they're frivolous complaints. They're little complaints, and they're not something that's of the issue of a roof is falling down on a house that's had electric run into it for 10 years. That's a problem. But that's a problem that we need to deal with.